Hey history buffs and curious minds. Welcome to the channel. We all grew up learning history, absorbing facts presented as undeniable truths. But what if I told you that some of those bedrock historical narratives are, well, wrong? Shockingly, surprisingly, and often dramatically inaccurate. Today, we're diving headfirst into the fascinating world of historical misconceptions, tackling 5 incredibly common myths that you probably believe, and revealing the astonishing, often far more compelling, truth behind them. Get ready to have your historical worldview gently, yet thoroughly, upended. We're not here to simply point out errors. We're here to explore why these myths persist, how they were created, and what the real story actually is. Because understanding history isn't just about memorizing dates and names. It's about critically examining the narratives we've inherited, questioning the sources, and piecing together a more complete and accurate picture of the past. And that's precisely what we'll be doing today. We'll be embarking on a journey of discovery, uncovering the hidden layers of history and challenging the simplified narratives that often dominate popular culture. These aren't obscure, esoteric historical debates. These are myths that are deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness, shaping our understanding of entire civilizations and cultures. They're myths that are taught in schools, depicted in movies, and repeated in everyday conversations. But the truth, as we'll see, is far more nuanced, complex, and frankly, more interesting than the simplified versions we've been told. Prepare to be challenged, to have your assumptions questioned, and to potentially rewrite your understanding of some of history's most iconic moments. Because the truth, as they say, is often stranger and far more fascinating than fiction. And today, we're unearthing that truth. Think about it. How many times have you heard someone say, "Columbus discovered America"? It's a statement so ingrained in our collective consciousness that it feels almost axiomatic. But what if that statement, that seemingly fundamental building block of our historical understanding, is fundamentally flawed? What if it's not just inaccurate, but actively erases the rich and vibrant history of the indigenous populations who had already built thriving civilizations for millennia before Columbus ever set foot on their shores? That's the kind of question we'll be tackling today. We'll be dissecting these 5 pervasive myths, exploring their origins, and presenting the evidence that reveals a far more accurate and compelling narrative. We'll be looking at the evidence, analyzing the sources, and considering the perspectives that have been systematically excluded from the dominant historical narrative. We're not just debunking myths, we're reconstructing history, one fascinating revelation at a time. So, buckle up, history enthusiasts, because this is going to be a wild ride. We'll be uncovering the surprising truths behind these 5 common historical myths, and by the end of this video, you might just find yourself looking at history in a whole new light. Get ready to challenge your assumptions, expand your knowledge, and discover the hidden stories that have been waiting to be told. Let's begin. And remember, stay curious, keep questioning, and never stop exploring the fascinating and often surprising world of history. The myth of Columbus discovering America is perhaps the most pervasive and damaging historical inaccuracy. It's a narrative so deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness, so consistently repeated in textbooks and popular culture, that it often feels like an undeniable truth. But the truth is far more complex, far more nuanced, and far more devastating than the simplistic version we've been taught. The notion of Columbus discovering America actively erases the millennia-long presence of thriving indigenous civilizations across the 2 continents. It's a narrative that minimizes, if not completely ignores, the rich tapestry of cultures, innovations, and societies that existed long before 1492. Before Columbus, the Americas were home to a vast array of indigenous peoples, each with their own unique history, language, and traditions. From the sophisticated city-states of the Maya and Aztec empires in Mesoamerica, to the intricate irrigation systems of the Andes, to the vast networks of trade and communication that span the North American continent, indigenous civilizations had achieved remarkable feats of engineering, agriculture, and social organization. Their achievements were not simply primitive or rudimentary. They were complex, sophisticated, and deeply interwoven with the natural world. They were societies that had developed sustainable agricultural practices, intricate astronomical knowledge, and complex political systems centuries, even millennia, before European contact. Consider the Maya civilization, for instance, with their advanced understanding of mathematics and astronomy, reflected in their incredibly precise calendar system. Or the Inca Empire, with its vast network of roads and sophisticated administrative structures that connected a vast and diverse population. These were not isolated tribes living in simple hunter-gatherer societies. They were sophisticated civilizations with intricate social structures, complex religious beliefs, and remarkable artistic achievements. Their cities were marvels of engineering, their art breathtakingly beautiful, and their understanding of the world around them remarkably advanced. But the narrative of Columbus's discovery not only ignores this rich history, it actively suppresses it. By framing Columbus as the discoverer, the narrative implicitly positions indigenous populations as passive recipients of European culture and technology, devoid of agency and historical significance. It's a narrative that erases centuries of indigenous knowledge, innovation, and resilience, reducing complex societies to a blank canvas upon which European history is painted. It's a narrative that fails to acknowledge the devastating impact of European colonization on indigenous populations, the diseases, the displacement, the violence, and the systematic destruction of cultures and ways of life. The arrival of Columbus and subsequent European colonization marked a catastrophic turning point in the history of the Americas. The introduction of European diseases, to which indigenous populations had no immunity, decimated entire communities. The relentless pursuit of land, resources, and power led to widespread violence, displacement, and the forced assimilation of indigenous cultures. The very fabric of indigenous societies was systematically dismantled, their languages suppressed, their traditions eroded, and their histories rewritten to fit a narrative that served the interests of the colonizers. The impact of this erasure continues to resonate today. The legacy of colonization continues to shape the social, political, and economic realities of indigenous communities across the Americas. The struggle for land rights, self-determination, and cultural preservation is a testament to the enduring impact of this historical injustice. The myth of Columbus's discovery is not just a historical inaccuracy, it's a tool of oppression, a narrative that perpetuates the marginalization and silencing of indigenous voices. To truly understand the history of the Americas, we must move beyond this simplistic and damaging narrative. We must acknowledge the rich and complex history of indigenous civilizations that existed long before Columbus, and we must confront the devastating consequences of European colonization. We must actively challenge the dominant narrative, amplify the voices of indigenous peoples, and strive to create a more accurate and inclusive understanding of the past. Only then can we begin to heal the wounds of the past and build a more just and equitable future. It's not about denying the historical significance of European arrival. It's about acknowledging the pre-existing history, the devastating consequences, and the ongoing struggle for justice and recognition. It's about understanding the full story, not just a sanitized and incomplete version that serves to perpetuate injustice. The true history of the Americas is a complex and multifaceted story, one that demands our careful attention and critical engagement. Let's work together to ensure that the voices of indigenous peoples are heard, their histories are acknowledged, and their contributions are celebrated. The reality is far more breathtaking and tragically more complex than the simple myth suggests. The Americas weren't empty when Columbus arrived. They were teeming with life, vibrant with diverse cultures, and home to sophisticated civilizations that had flourished for millennia. The narrative of discovery actively erases this rich tapestry of human achievement, a deliberate silencing of voices, and a rewriting of history that continues to impact indigenous communities today. Let's delve into just a fraction of the evidence that shatters the myth of a new world waiting to be found. For thousands of years, complex societies thrived across the two continents. In Mesoamerica, the Olmec civilization, dating back to at least 1200 BCE, laid the foundation for later empires. Their monumental stone heads, Intricate carvings and sophisticated agricultural techniques are testaments to their advanced understanding of engineering, art, and societal organization. They established a cultural framework that influenced subsequent civilizations, including the Maya and the Aztec. The Maya, who flourished from around 250 CE to 900 CE, were renowned for their advancements in mathematics, astronomy, and writing. Their calendar system, astonishingly accurate, reveals a profound understanding of celestial mechanics. Their cities, like Tikal and Palenque, were marvels of urban planning, featuring intricate temples, palaces, and plazas, all connected by a network of roads and canals. Their intricate hieroglyphic script, deciphered only relatively recently, unveils a rich literary tradition, complex religious beliefs, and a sophisticated understanding of their world. Their achievements in mathematics, including the concept of zero, were centuries ahead of their European counterparts. Further south, the Aztec Empire, dominating the region from the 14th to the 16th centuries, constructed magnificent cities like Tenochtitlan, a sprawling metropolis built on an island in Lake Texcoco. This meticulously planned city boasted impressive architecture, advanced irrigation systems, and a complex social and political structure. Their sophisticated understanding of agriculture allowed them to support a large population, and their artistic and intellectual achievements were equally impressive. They developed a complex system of governance, advanced weaponry, and a rich cultural heritage. Beyond Mesoamerica, the Andes Mountains were home to equally impressive civilizations. The Inca Empire, spanning from the 15th to the 16th centuries, controlled a vast territory stretching along the western coast of South America. Their mastery of engineering is evident in their extensive network of roads, bridges, and terraces carved into the steep mountain slopes. Their sophisticated agricultural techniques, including the cultivation of potatoes and other crops adapted to high altitudes, allowed them to support a large and diverse population. Their intricate system of record-keeping, using knotted strings called quipu, demonstrates their advanced administrative capabilities. In North America, too, thriving societies existed long before European contact. The Mississippian culture, known for its large earthen mounds, flourished from around 800 CE to 1500 CE. These mounds, some of which were massive structures, served as ceremonial centers, burial sites, and platforms for residential buildings. Their sophisticated social organization and agricultural practices indicate a complex and well-developed society. Similar complex societies flourished in various regions of North America, each with its own unique cultural identity and achievements. These are just a few examples of the vibrant and sophisticated civilizations that flourished in the Americas before 1492. The sheer diversity of these cultures, their remarkable achievements in various fields, and their long history demonstrate the falsehood of the narrative that posits a new world, awaiting discovery. However, the arrival of Columbus and the subsequent European colonization had a devastating impact on these thriving civilizations. The introduction of European diseases, to which indigenous populations had no immunity, led to a catastrophic decline in population. Warfare, enslavement, and the destruction of traditional ways of life further compounded the suffering. The systematic suppression of indigenous languages, cultures, and histories aimed to erase their existence and replace it with a European narrative. The erasure of indigenous history wasn't just a consequence of conquest, it was a deliberate act. European colonizers actively sought to rewrite history, minimizing the achievements of indigenous civilizations and portraying them as primitive or savage. This narrative served to justify the colonization and exploitation of their lands and resources. The systematic destruction of indigenous artifacts, the suppression of oral traditions, and the rewriting of history in European terms have obscured the true extent of indigenous knowledge, innovation, and cultural richness. Even today, the legacy of this historical erasure continues to impact indigenous communities. The struggle for land rights, self-determination, and cultural preservation is a testament to the ongoing fight against the marginalization and silencing of indigenous voices. Understanding the true history of the Americas requires a critical examination of the dominant narratives, a conscious effort to amplify indigenous voices, and a commitment to acknowledging the devastating consequences of colonization. Only then can we begin to construct a more accurate and inclusive understanding of the past and work towards a more just and equitable future. It is a future where the vibrant tapestry of indigenous histories is finally woven into the full narrative of the Americas, a narrative of resilience, creativity, and enduring strength. Next up, we tackle a myth shrouded in horned helmets and fire-breathing dragons, the idea that Vikings were nothing but brutal barbarians. While their reputation for raiding and warfare is undeniably well-earned, the reality of Viking culture is far richer, more complex, and surprisingly sophisticated than the simplistic stereotype suggests. The image of a bloodthirsty warrior, fueled by mead and a thirst for conquest, is a gross oversimplification of a society that possessed remarkable skills in shipbuilding, navigation, trade, and even surprisingly advanced social structures. Hollywood and popular culture have long perpetuated this one-dimensional portrayal, often depicting Vikings as little more than savage raiders, fueled by violence and a lust for plunder. This image, while partly rooted in historical fact, their raids were undeniably brutal and devastating, obscures a far more nuanced and fascinating reality. The truth is, the Vikings weren't just ruthless warriors. They were also skilled craftsmen, shrewd traders, and surprisingly adept farmers. They weren't simply a homogeneous group of bloodthirsty raiders. They were a diverse collection of people from various Scandinavian regions, each with their own unique customs and traditions. Let's start with their remarkable achievements in shipbuilding. Their longships, iconic vessels of unparalleled design and engineering, were marvels of their time. These sleek, agile ships, capable of navigating both rivers and open seas, were not only crucial to their raiding activities, but also facilitated extensive trade networks across Europe and even beyond. The craftsmanship involved in building these vessels, the intricate woodworking, the precise construction, the innovative design that combined speed, maneuverability, and seaworthiness, speaks volumes about their advanced technological capabilities and ingenuity. These weren't crude, hastily assembled boats. They were sophisticated pieces of engineering, testament to their mastery of naval technology. Their ability to build and navigate these ships allowed them to explore and exploit new territories, expanding their trade networks and influence across vast distances. And speaking of trade, the Vikings were far more than just plunderers. Their extensive trade networks connected Scandinavia with the rest of Europe, and even parts of Asia and North America. They traded goods ranging from furs and timber to slaves and precious metals, establishing trading posts and settlements across the continent. This extensive trade network fostered cultural exchange and the dissemination of ideas, technologies, and religious beliefs. They weren't isolated, self-sufficient communities. They were active participants in the broader European economic and cultural landscape. Archaeological evidence consistently reveals the presence of imported goods in Viking settlements, indicating a thriving trade that extended far beyond their Scandinavian homeland. This trade wasn't just about acquiring wealth, it was also a crucial factor in shaping their culture and influencing their development. Beyond their seafaring prowess and trading expertise, the Vikings also possessed surprisingly advanced social structures. While their society was certainly hierarchical, with chieftains and kings holding significant power, it wasn't a completely rigid or authoritarian system. They had sophisticated legal systems, documented in sagas and runic inscriptions, that governed various aspects of their lives, from property rights to dispute resolution. These laws, while often harsh by modern standards, demonstrate a degree of social organization and legal sophistication that often goes unacknowledged in the simplistic barbarian stereotype. Their social structures, while different from those of other European societies, were highly developed and reflected a complex understanding of governance and social order. The existence of these legal systems challenges the notion of a chaotic, lawless society, highlighting the presence of a structured social order and a system of justice, however rudimentary it might seem by modern standards. Furthermore, the artistic achievements of the Vikings often go overlooked. Their intricate metalwork, their beautiful jewelry, Their rune stones and their intricate carvings are testaments to their artistic skills and aesthetic sensibilities. These artifacts, far from being crude or barbaric, display a remarkable level of craftsmanship and artistic sophistication. The intricate detail, the symbolic meaning embedded in their designs, and the mastery of various metalworking techniques all point to a culture that valued artistry and craftsmanship. These artistic creations offer a glimpse into their beliefs, their values, and their understanding of the world around them. They weren't just warriors. They were also artists, craftsmen, and creators. The Viking Age wasn't a monolithic period of history. It spanned several centuries and encompassed a vast geographical area. The raids, while undoubtedly a significant aspect of their history, don't represent the totality of their culture. Their achievements in shipbuilding, trade, and social organization, coupled with their artistic talents, demonstrate a far more complex and nuanced society than the simplistic stereotype of brutal barbarians suggests. While acknowledging their violent history, it is crucial to recognize the richness and complexity of their culture, lest we perpetuate a misleading and incomplete picture of a fascinating and influential people. The Vikings were warriors, yes, but they were also much, much more. Now, let's delve into the reality of Viking culture, a reality far more nuanced and sophisticated than the simplistic, brutal barbarian stereotype often portrayed. We're going to explore the remarkable achievements that demonstrate a level of technological advancement, economic sophistication, and social organization that challenges the common misconceptions. First, let's talk about their shipbuilding. The Viking longships weren't just boats. They were technological marvels, masterpieces of engineering and craftsmanship. These weren't crudely constructed vessels. They were sleek, agile ships, meticulously crafted from wood, expertly designed to navigate both the narrowest rivers and the vast open ocean. Their design was revolutionary, combining speed, maneuverability, and remarkable seaworthiness in a way that was unparalleled for its time. Think about the sheer skill involved. The precise woodworking, the intricate joinery, the understanding of hydrodynamics necessary to create a vessel capable of such feats. This wasn't simply about brute force. It was about precision, ingenuity, and a deep understanding of naval architecture. The construction of these ships required specialized skills, advanced knowledge of materials, and a collaborative effort that speaks to the sophisticated organization within Viking society. The longships weren't merely tools of war. They were also the engines of their extensive trade networks. These ships allowed Vikings to traverse vast distances, establishing trade routes that connected Scandinavia with the rest of Europe, and even reaching as far as North America and the Middle East. This wasn't simple raiding. It was a complex system of commerce, involving the exchange of a wide array of goods. They traded furs and timber, essential resources from their Scandinavian homeland. They traded slaves, a grim reality of the era, but a significant part of their economic activity. They traded silver, gold, and other precious metals, acquired through both trade and plunder. This wasn't a haphazard system. It was a well-organized network, with established trade routes, trading posts, and even specialized merchants who facilitated the exchange of goods across vast geographical areas. The sheer scale and complexity of this trade network highlight the advanced economic understanding and organizational capabilities of Viking society. It wasn't just about acquiring wealth. It was about building relationships, fostering alliances, and creating a system of interconnectedness that extended far beyond their Scandinavian homeland. Archaeological evidence consistently supports this picture of a sophisticated trade network. Viking settlements across Europe have yielded a plethora of artifacts from far-flung regions, demonstrating the extent of their trade connections. We find evidence of imported goods, silks from the East, pottery from the Mediterranean, weaponry from the continent, all within Viking settlements, demonstrating the reach and influence of their commercial activity. This isn't just about isolated instances of trade. It's about a consistent, ongoing exchange of goods and ideas, indicative of a well-established and intricate economic system. The Vikings weren't simply isolated raiders. They were active participants in the broader European and even global trading system. Their economic prowess played a crucial role in shaping their culture, their society, and their influence on the world. Beyond their maritime skills and economic prowess, Viking society possessed surprisingly advanced social structures. While their society was undoubtedly hierarchical, with chieftains and kings holding significant power, it wasn't a completely rigid or authoritarian system. They had sophisticated legal systems, documented in sagas, runic inscriptions, and archaeological evidence that governed various aspects of their lives. These laws, although often harsh by modern standards, demonstrate a degree of social organization and legal sophistication that often goes unacknowledged. They had laws governing property rights, inheritance, marriage, and dispute resolution. These weren't simply arbitrary rules. They were a complex system designed to maintain order, resolve conflicts, and regulate social interactions. The existence of these legal codes challenges the simplistic notion of a chaotic, lawless society, highlighting the presence of a structured social order and a system of justice, however rudimentary it might seem by modern standards. The sagas, epic narratives passed down through generations, offer valuable insights into Viking society. These stories, while often embellished with legendary elements, provide glimpses into their social structures, their values, and their beliefs. They reveal the importance of kinship ties, the role of honor and shame in social interactions, and the complex relationships between individuals and communities. The sagas aren't just entertaining tales. They are important historical sources that offer valuable insights into the workings of Viking society. They reveal a society that, while violent at times, also possessed a sophisticated understanding of social relationships, political power, and legal principles. The archaeological record also provides valuable evidence of Viking social structures. The layout of their settlements, the construction of their buildings, and the distribution of artifacts all provide clues about their social organization. The presence of larger, more elaborate buildings in some settlements suggests the existence of social hierarchies, while the distribution of artifacts provides insights into the economic activities and social status of different individuals and groups within the community. The meticulous craftsmanship evident in many Viking artifacts, from weaponry to jewelry, further suggests a high degree of skill and specialization within their society. In conclusion, the simplistic stereotype of Vikings as nothing more than brutal barbarians fails to capture the complexity and sophistication of their culture. Their remarkable achievements in shipbuilding, the extent of their trade networks, and the evidence of their surprisingly advanced social structures all challenge this simplistic portrayal. They were skilled craftsmen, shrewd traders, and adept navigators. They had sophisticated legal systems and complex social structures. They were warriors, yes, but they were also much, much more. Understanding the true nature of Viking culture requires moving beyond the simplistic narratives and engaging with the rich historical evidence that reveals a far more nuanced and fascinating reality. Now, let's tackle a myth as monumental as its subject, the Great Wall of China. For generations, we've been presented with images of a single, continuous, unbroken wall snaking across the vast landscape of China, a symbol of imperial power and defensive might. This image, iconic and powerful, is deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness. But the reality, as with many historical narratives, is far more complex and fascinating than this simplistic portrayal suggests. The truth is, the Great Wall wasn't a single, unified structure. It was, and is, a series of fortifications built over centuries by different dynasties, employing diverse construction methods and materials, and exhibiting significant gaps and variations in its design and execution. The myth of a single, continuous wall is a powerful simplification of a far more intricate historical reality. It's a narrative that, while visually striking, obscures the diverse histories, the changing political landscapes, and the intricate engineering challenges that shaped this remarkable landmark. It's a simplification that erases the contributions of countless individuals, from emperors and architects to laborers and soldiers, who toiled for generations to build and maintain these fortifications. Understanding the true nature of the Great Wall requires us to move beyond the simplistic image and delve into the rich tapestry of its history, appreciating its complexity and acknowledging the nuanced narratives that contributed to its construction and evolution. The construction of the Great Wall wasn't a single, unified project undertaken by a single emperor or dynasty. Instead, it was a long, evolving process, spanning centuries, involving numerous dynasties, each contributing to the construction and modification of existing sections, or building entirely new sections to address specific strategic and political needs. The earliest known fortifications predate the Qin dynasty, with various states building walls to protect their territories and control their borders. These were not uniform. They varied significantly in materials, construction techniques, and overall design. The Qin dynasty, in the 3rd century BCE, was the first to unify China and, under the rule of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, undertook a massive project to connect and standardize these existing fortifications, creating a more extensive and coherent defensive system. This was a monumental undertaking, requiring the mobilization of vast resources, manpower, and advanced organizational skills. But even this unified project wasn't a single, continuous wall. It comprised various sections, built with different materials and employing varying construction techniques, reflecting the diverse geographical landscapes and available resources. Subsequent dynasties, including the Han, Sui, Jin, and Ming, continued to expand, reinforce, and modify existing sections of the wall, or build entirely new sections to meet their specific defensive needs. Each dynasty left its own unique mark on the wall, reflecting changes in military technology, construction techniques, and strategic priorities. The Ming dynasty, in particular, is often associated with the most iconic sections of the Great Wall, but even their contributions were not a single, unified structure. They built and repaired sections, often using brick and stone, incorporating advanced architectural techniques, but these sections were not continuously connected. The materials used in the construction of the Great Wall varied significantly depending on the geographical location and the available resources. In some areas, rammed earth was the primary material, while in others, stone, brick, or a combination of materials were used. The construction techniques also varied, reflecting the technological advancements and engineering skills of different periods. The wall's height, width, and overall design also varied significantly depending on the terrain and strategic requirements. In some areas, the wall is relatively low and narrow, while in others, it is tall and imposing, reflecting the specific defensive needs of the location. The gaps and variations in the Great Wall are not imperfections. They are integral to its history and its function. These gaps weren't always due to negligence or lack of resources. In some cases, natural geographical features, such as mountains or rivers, provided natural barriers, making the construction of a continuous wall unnecessary. In other cases, strategic decisions were made to leave gaps to allow for the passage of troops or trade caravans. The wall wasn't intended to be an impenetrable barrier. It was a complex defensive system, incorporating various strategies and tactics to deter invasion and control movement along its length. The myth of a single, continuous Great Wall not only simplifies a complex historical reality, but also diminishes the human cost of its construction. The construction of the wall required the mobilization of vast numbers of laborers, soldiers, and convicts, many of whom perished during the arduous process. The human suffering and sacrifice involved in building and maintaining the wall are often overlooked in the simplistic narrative of a unified, monolithic structure. Understanding the true nature of the Great Wall requires us to acknowledge the human cost and the complex social and political dynamics that shaped its construction. In conclusion, the image of the Great Wall of China as a single, continuous structure is a powerful but ultimately inaccurate simplification. The reality is far more intricate and nuanced, reflecting centuries of construction, modification, and adaptation by different dynasties, employing diverse materials and construction techniques, resulting in a series of fortifications with significant gaps and variations. Understanding the true nature of the Great Wall requires us to move beyond this simplistic myth and appreciate the complex historical, geographical, and human factors that shaped this remarkable landmark. It is a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of the Chinese people, but also a reminder of the often overlooked human cost of monumental projects. The Great Wall's true story is far more fascinating and far more human than any single, simple narrative can possibly convey. The reality, however, is far more nuanced and fascinating than the simplified image of a single, unbroken wall. The Great Wall of China, as we know it, isn't a single structure built at one time, but rather a series of fortifications constructed over centuries by different dynasties, each with its own unique architectural style, materials, and strategic goals. It's a testament to the enduring ingenuity and resilience of the Chinese people, a constantly evolving response to shifting political landscapes and military threats. Think of it less as a single wall and more as a complex, sprawling network of defensive structures, stretching thousands of miles across diverse and challenging terrain. The earliest known fortifications predate the Qin dynasty, the empire that unified China and is often credited with the construction of the Great Wall. Various warring states, vying for power and territory, erected their own defensive walls, using readily available materials such as rammed earth, wood, and stone. These early walls varied considerably in height, width, and construction techniques, reflecting the local resources and the specific defensive needs of each state. They weren't uniform. They weren't connected. They were a patchwork of individual defensive lines, a testament to the fragmented political landscape of pre-unified China. Then came the Qin dynasty, under the ambitious rule of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. He unified China, and with that unification came a desire to establish a strong, unified defense against nomadic incursions from the north. This wasn't about building a brand new wall from scratch. It was about connecting, standardizing, and strengthening the existing fortifications. It was a Herculean undertaking, requiring the mobilization of massive amounts of labor, resources, and organizational skill. Millions of workers, soldiers, and convicts toiled for years, often under brutal conditions, to connect and fortify these existing walls, creating a more extensive and coherent defensive system. Even this massive project, however, wasn't a single, continuous wall. It was a complex network of fortifications, adapting to the varied geography, incorporating natural barriers like mountains and rivers, and leaving gaps where strategically unnecessary. The construction of the Great Wall wasn't a one-time event. It continued for centuries, with each subsequent dynasty adding its own layer to this complex historical tapestry. The Han Dynasty, for example, expanded the wall significantly, extending its reach further westward. They employed new materials and construction techniques, reflecting advancements in engineering and military technology. The Sui Dynasty, known for its ambitious infrastructure projects, also contributed to the wall's expansion and reinforcement, adapting its design to meet evolving strategic needs. The same is true for the later dynasties, including the Tang, Jin, and Yuan. Each dynasty had its own priorities, its own resources, and its own approach to defense, leading to a wide variety of architectural styles and construction techniques along the wall's length. The Ming Dynasty, from the 14th to the 17th centuries, is perhaps most strongly associated with the Great Wall in popular imagination. They undertook extensive repairs and renovations of existing sections and built new sections, often using brick and stone, creating the iconic imagery of the wall that we often see depicted today. However, even the Ming Dynasty's contributions weren't a continuous, unbroken wall. Their construction followed the existing contours of the landscape, incorporating natural barriers and leaving gaps where strategically appropriate. Their work represents a significant chapter in the wall's history, but it's still just one chapter in a much longer, more complex story. The materials used in the construction of the Great Wall varied considerably depending on the geographical location and the resources available. Rammed earth, a mixture of soil, gravel, and other materials, was a common building material, particularly in areas where stone was scarce. Stone, however, was used extensively in many sections of the wall, particularly in mountainous areas. Brick was also used, especially during the Ming Dynasty, reflecting advancements in brick-making technology. The choice of materials and construction techniques reflected not only the availability of resources, but also the specific engineering challenges posed by the terrain. The wall's height and width also varied significantly, reflecting both the terrain and the defensive needs of each section. In some areas, the wall is relatively low and narrow, while in other areas, particularly in strategic locations, it is much taller and wider, creating a formidable barrier. The variations in design and construction are not flaws or imperfections. They are integral to understanding the wall's history and its function. The gaps in the Great Wall were not simply the result of negligence or incomplete construction. In many cases, natural geographical features, such as mountains and rivers, provided natural barriers, making the construction of a continuous wall unnecessary. In other cases, strategic decisions were made to leave gaps to allow for the passage of troops or trade caravans. The wall wasn't meant to be an impenetrable barrier. It was a complex defensive system, incorporating a variety of strategies and tactics to deter invasion and control movement along its length. The myth of a single, continuous Great Wall not only simplifies a complex historical reality, but it also diminishes the human cost of its construction. The building and maintenance of the wall over centuries involved the labor of millions of people, many of whom worked under extremely harsh conditions. The human cost of this monumental project, the suffering and sacrifice endured by countless workers, soldiers, and convicts, is often overlooked in the simplified narrative of a single, unified structure. In conclusion, the Great Wall of China isn't a single, monolithic structure, but a complex, evolving network of fortifications built over centuries by different dynasties. It's a testament to human ingenuity and resilience, but also a reminder of the immense human cost of monumental projects. Understanding its true nature requires us to move beyond the simplistic myth and appreciate its complexity, its variations, and the rich tapestry of human stories woven into its existence. It's a story of adaptation, innovation, and the enduring struggle for security and control across the vast landscapes of China. Now, let's move on to a myth as delicious as it is historically dubious, the infamous "let them eat cake" quote attributed to Marie Antoinette. This seemingly simple phrase, a potent symbol of aristocratic indifference to the suffering of the common people, has become inextricably linked to the French Queen, fueling centuries of resentment and shaping our understanding of the French Revolution. But the reality, as we'll see, is far more complicated, far more ambiguous, and far less straightforward than the popular narrative suggests. The truth is, there's no definitive proof that Marie Antoinette ever uttered those words. The quote's origins are shrouded in mystery, its attribution to the Queen a convenient, and perhaps deliberately crafted, piece of propaganda that served to vilify her during the turbulent years leading up to the Revolution. The image of Marie Antoinette, the pampered Austrian princess, blithely suggesting that the starving populace simply eat cake, has become a powerful symbol of aristocratic privilege and callous disregard for the plight of the common people. This image, consistently reinforced through historical narratives, art, and popular culture, paints a picture of a queen utterly detached from the realities of her kingdom, oblivious to the widespread poverty and hunger that fueled the growing unrest among the French populace. This narrative served a crucial purpose during the Revolution. It provided a convenient scapegoat, a symbol of all that was wrong with the French monarchy. By attributing this callous remark to Marie Antoinette, revolutionaries could effectively demonize her and rally support for their cause. But the historical evidence for this quote is remarkably thin, and the story of its origins is far more nuanced and complex than the simple narrative suggests. The earliest known appearance of this phrase predates Marie Antoinette's arrival in France. Similar sentiments, expressing the indifference of the wealthy to the suffering of the poor, appear in various literary works dating back to the 18th century and even earlier. These earlier instances suggest that the phrase, or variations thereof, was already a common expression of aristocratic apathy, a trope used to satirize the disconnect between the privileged elite and the struggling masses. It's likely that the phrase existed as a common saying, a rhetorical device used to express a familiar sentiment, long before Marie Antoinette ever set foot on French soil. Furthermore, the historical context surrounding the purported utterance of this phrase is far from clear. There's no contemporary record, no letter, no diary entry, no eyewitness account that definitively places these words in the mouth of Marie Antoinette. The earliest known written reference to Marie Antoinette saying, "Let them eat cake," appears years after the fact, in memoirs and anecdotal accounts written by individuals who were either not present at the alleged event or whose accounts are questionable at best. These accounts, often written with a clear political agenda, serve to further demonize the Queen and bolster the revolutionary narrative. The lack of verifiable evidence, coupled with the existence of similar expressions predating Marie Antoinette, strongly suggests that the quote was not actually spoken by her. It was more likely a fabricated anecdote, a piece of propaganda designed to discredit the Queen and portray her as heartless and out of touch. This fabrication served a crucial purpose during the Revolution. In the highly charged political climate of revolutionary France, the Queen became a convenient target for the revolutionaries' propaganda machine. By associating her with this callous remark, they could effectively rally public opinion against her and justify their actions. The question then becomes, why did this particular quote stick? Why did it become so inextricably linked to Marie Antoinette, while similar expressions from the same era have faded into obscurity? The answer lies in the powerful symbolism of the phrase itself. It encapsulates, in a single, concise sentence, the perceived indifference of the aristocracy to the suffering of the common people. It's a powerful image, easily understood and readily accepted by a populace already simmering with resentment towards the monarchy. The quote's simplicity and its potent symbolism made it a perfect tool for propaganda, a readily digestible symbol of aristocratic cruelty and detachment. The attribution of the "let them eat cake" quote to Marie Antoinette is not simply a historical inaccuracy, it's a testament to the power of propaganda, the way in which historical narratives can be shaped and manipulated to serve political agendas. It's a reminder that historical accounts are often constructed, interpreted, and even fabricated, and that understanding history requires a critical examination of sources, an awareness of biases, and a willingness to question established narratives. The quote's enduring power lies not in its historical accuracy, but in its symbolic resonance, in its ability to encapsulate a broader narrative of social inequality and aristocratic indifference. It's important to remember that Marie Antoinette was a complex historical figure, subjected to intense scrutiny and vilification during her lifetime and beyond. While her actions and policies certainly contributed to the growing unrest in France, attributing the "let them eat cake" quote to her is a gross simplification of her life and a distortion of historical reality. It's a convenient narrative, a powerful symbol, but ultimately a fabricated one that obscures the more complex realities of the French Revolution and the life of the ill-fated Queen. This fabricated quote serves as a stark reminder that historical narratives are often constructed, manipulated, and even invented to serve specific purposes, and that a critical and nuanced approach to historical analysis is essential to unraveling the complexities of the past. The myth of Marie Antoinette and the cake serves as a cautionary tale, reminder of the dangers of accepting historical narratives at face value and the importance of critically examining the sources and motivations behind those narratives. The truth, as always, is far more nuanced than the simplified stories we often hear. The reality is far more intricate than the simple, catchy phrase suggests. Marie Antoinette, the young queen thrust into the volatile politics of pre-revolutionary France, became a convenient scapegoat for the growing unrest. The "let them eat cake" quote, far from being a spontaneous utterance, was a carefully crafted piece of propaganda, a weapon used to demonize her and fuel the flames of revolution. It wasn't a factual account of an event. It was a carefully constructed narrative designed to tarnish her reputation and justify the actions of those who sought to overthrow the monarchy. Let's unravel the true story, peeling back the layers of myth and uncovering the historical context that gave rise to this infamous phrase. First, we need to establish that there's no contemporary evidence, no letters, no diaries, no eyewitness accounts that definitively place these words in Marie Antoinette's mouth. The earliest known written reference to this quote appears years after the fact, long after the Queen's life had become a subject of intense political scrutiny and vilification. These later accounts, often penned by individuals with clear political agendas, served to further demonize the Queen and solidify the revolutionary narrative. The absence of contemporary evidence is crucial. In the bustling court of Versailles, with its intricate social dynamics and constant political maneuvering, it's highly improbable that such a damning statement, uttered by a prominent figure like the Queen, would go unrecorded. The lack of any contemporaneous accounts suggests that the quote either never happened or, more likely, was fabricated for political purposes. Moreover, the phrase itself, or variations of it, predates Marie Antoinette's time. Similar sentiments expressing the callous indifference of the wealthy towards the suffering of the poor appear in various literary works from the 17th and 18th centuries. These earlier instances suggest that the sentiment expressed in the quote was already a common trope, a rhetorical device used to satirize the disconnect between the privileged elite and the struggling masses. The phrase, in other words, existed as a pre-existing social commentary, a ready-made expression that could be easily attached to a convenient target. The attribution of the quote to Marie Antoinette, therefore, was not an accidental association. It was a deliberate act of political manipulation. In the highly charged atmosphere of revolutionary France, the Queen became a lightning rod for popular discontent. As tensions escalated and the monarchy's legitimacy crumbled, the revolutionaries needed a symbol of aristocratic excess, a figurehead to represent the perceived injustices of the ancien regime. Marie Antoinette, with her foreign origins and perceived aloofness, fit the bill perfectly. The "let them eat cake" quote served as the perfect weapon in this political battle. It was simple, memorable, and easily understood. It captured, in a single, concise sentence, the essence of aristocratic indifference to the suffering of the common people. It was a powerful image, readily accepted by a populace already simmering with resentment towards the monarchy and its perceived excesses. It was a potent symbol that resonated deeply with the revolutionary cause, fueling the flames of rebellion and providing a justification for the overthrow of the monarchy. The quote's effectiveness as a piece of propaganda is undeniable. It resonated with the public precisely because it encapsulated a broader narrative of social inequality and aristocratic privilege. It wasn't about historical accuracy, it was about emotional impact. It was a carefully crafted narrative designed to evoke feelings of anger, resentment, and outrage towards the Queen, thus mobilizing support for the revolutionary cause. The enduring power of the myth, therefore, lies not in its historical veracity, but in its symbolic resonance. It's a powerful symbol of aristocratic indifference, a potent reminder of the social inequalities that fueled the French Revolution. Its persistence in popular culture is a testament to its effectiveness as a piece of propaganda, its ability to capture and express a complex social and political reality in a simple, memorable phrase. However, understanding the historical context is crucial to avoid perpetuating this historical inaccuracy. The quote wasn't a factual representation of an event. It was a carefully constructed narrative designed to serve a specific political agenda. It was a piece of propaganda, a weapon used to demonize Marie Antoinette and justify the overthrow of the monarchy. The story of the "let them eat cake" quote serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of accepting historical narratives at face value. It highlights the importance of critical thinking, the need to examine sources carefully, and the recognition that historical accounts are often shaped by biases, political agendas, and the desire to simplify complex realities. It's a reminder that historical truth is often far more nuanced and complex than the simplified stories we often hear. The myth of Marie Antoinette and the cake, therefore, is not just a historical inaccuracy. It's a case study in the power of propaganda and the importance of critical historical analysis. It's a reminder that even seemingly simple historical anecdotes can be far more complex than they initially appear. And it's a testament to the enduring power of carefully constructed narratives to shape our understanding of the past. The final myth we'll dissect today concerns the fall of the Roman Empire, a cataclysmic event etched into our collective memory as a singular, dramatic collapse. We've all heard the simplified version: barbarian hordes, a single decisive battle, and poof, the mighty empire vanishes. This narrative, while visually compelling, is a gross oversimplification of a far more complex and protracted process, spanning centuries and involving a multitude of interwoven factors. The reality is far more nuanced, far more fascinating, and far less dramatic than the popular conception suggests. The Roman Empire didn't fall. It gradually crumbled, a slow and agonizing decline fueled by a complex interplay of internal weaknesses and external pressures. The image of a sudden, catastrophic collapse is misleading. It suggests a clear beginning and a clear end, a dramatic narrative easily digestible and easily remembered. But history rarely unfolds in such neat, tidy packages. The decline of Rome was a long, drawn-out process, a gradual erosion of power and influence, a series of cascading failures that ultimately led to the empire's fragmentation and eventual dissolution. It wasn't a single event. It was a confluence of events, a complex web of interconnected factors that gradually weakened the empire, making it vulnerable to both internal rebellion and external invasion. One of the most significant contributing factors was the empire's sheer size and complexity. By the late Roman period, the empire had grown to encompass vast territories, stretching across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Governing such a sprawling empire was an immense logistical challenge, requiring a complex administrative apparatus and efficient communication networks. As the empire expanded, however, its administrative structures became increasingly strained, struggling to maintain control over its far-flung provinces. This vastness made it difficult to respond effectively to both internal threats and external invasions, creating a sense of fragmentation and weakening the empire's overall strength. The sheer size of the empire created logistical nightmares, hindering effective governance, communication, and military response. Maintaining control over such a diverse and geographically dispersed population became increasingly difficult, leading to internal conflicts and instability. Economic woes played a crucial role in the empire's decline. Years of overspending on military campaigns, lavish public works projects, and the ever-increasing demands of the imperial court created a chronic fiscal crisis. The empire's reliance on a complex system of taxation, often burdensome and inefficient, led to widespread economic hardship among the population. Inflation spiraled out of control, devaluing the currency and creating economic instability. The empire struggled to maintain its vast infrastructure, leading to a decline in trade and economic productivity. The economic instability further fueled social unrest and political instability, weakening the empire's ability to respond to challenges both internal and external. The economic crisis had a cascading effect, leading to a decline in trade, agriculture, and overall economic productivity, which in turn led to widespread poverty, social unrest, and political instability. Political instability was another major factor contributing to the empire's decline. The later Roman emperors, often weak and ineffective rulers, engaged in constant power struggles, leading to political instability and violence. The constant succession of emperors, many of whom were assassinated or overthrown, created chaos and uncertainty within the empire. This political instability undermined the empire's authority and weakened its ability to govern effectively. The lack of strong, consistent leadership created a power vacuum, which was exploited by ambitious generals, rival factions, and external enemies. Political infighting and corruption further weakened the empire's ability to address its economic and military challenges. The rise of Christianity also played a complex role in the empire's decline. While Christianity ultimately became the official religion of the empire, its rise initially created internal conflicts and tensions. The persecution of Christians in the early centuries of the empire fueled resentment and rebellion, while the later adoption of Christianity as the state religion created new challenges and divisions within the empire. The shift in religious focus, away from traditional Roman values and towards Christian ideals, further contributed to the empire's cultural and political fragmentation. The rise of Christianity, while eventually unifying the empire in a sense, initially created internal conflicts and divisions that weakened the empire's political and social cohesion. Military overstretch was also a significant contributing factor. The Roman army, once the most formidable fighting force in the ancient world, gradually became less effective. Years of constant warfare, the need to defend vast borders, and the increasing reliance on foreign mercenaries weakened the army's discipline and effectiveness. The empire struggled to maintain its military strength, making it increasingly vulnerable to invasions from barbarian tribes. The constant need to defend its vast frontiers stretched the Roman army thin, reducing its effectiveness and increasing its vulnerability to external threats. The growing reliance on foreign mercenaries further undermined the army's loyalty and cohesion. The barbarian invasions, often cited as the primary cause of the empire's fall, were in reality the culmination of centuries of decline. The barbarian tribes, initially nomadic groups living on the empire's frontiers, gradually increased their pressure on the Roman borders, taking advantage of the empire's internal weaknesses. The invasions were not a single event. They were a series of incursions and migrations, reflecting the internal instability and fragmentation of the empire. The barbarian invasions were the final blow, but they were enabled by the empire's pre-existing internal weaknesses. The invasions weren't the cause of the empire's fall. They were the symptom of its underlying problems. In conclusion, the fall of the Roman Empire was not a single event, but a complex and multifaceted process spanning centuries. It was a gradual decline, fueled by economic woes, political instability, military overstretch, and the rise of Christianity. The barbarian invasions were the final blow, but they were enabled by the empire's pre-existing internal weaknesses. To understand the fall of Rome, we must move beyond the simplistic narratives and appreciate the complex interplay of factors that contributed to its eventual demise. It was a slow, agonizing death, not a sudden, dramatic collapse. The true story is far more nuanced and far more fascinating than any single, simplistic explanation can possibly convey. It's a story of gradual erosion, internal decay, and the complex interplay of forces that ultimately led to the fragmentation and eventual disappearance of one of history's most influential and enduring civilizations. The simplified narrative paints a picture of swift, dramatic collapse, barbarian hordes sweeping across the frontiers, a final, decisive battle, and the mighty Roman Empire vanishes. But the reality, as with so many historical events, is far more intricate, far more nuanced, and far less dramatic than the popular conception. The decline of Rome wasn't a single event. It was a drawn-out process, a slow unraveling of a once great civilization, a gradual erosion of its power and influence over several centuries. It was a complex interplay of internal weaknesses and external pressures, a confluence of factors that ultimately led to the empire's fragmentation and eventual dissolution. To truly understand the fall of Rome, we must move beyond the simplistic narratives and delve into the intricate web of contributing factors. Let's begin with the empire's sheer size and its inherent challenges. At its zenith, the Roman Empire encompassed a vast territory, stretching across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Governing such a sprawling realm presented immense logistical challenges. Maintaining effective communication, coordinating military responses, and ensuring efficient administration across such diverse and geographically dispersed regions proved increasingly difficult as the empire expanded. This vastness created inherent vulnerabilities, making it harder to respond effectively to both internal rebellions and external threats. The sheer scale of the empire, in essence, contributed to its own unwieldiness and eventual disintegration. The logistical complexities of managing such a vast and diverse population created a breeding ground for internal conflicts and political instability. The farther the reach of the empire, the weaker its grip on its many distant provinces. Economic woes played a pivotal role in the empire's decline. Centuries of excessive military spending, coupled with lavish public works projects and the extravagant lifestyle of the imperial court, created a chronic fiscal crisis. The empire's intricate tax system, while impressive in its scope, proved increasingly inefficient and burdensome, leading to widespread economic hardship among the populace. Inflation spiraled out of control, devaluing the currency and exacerbating economic instability. The empire's infrastructure, once a symbol of its power and efficiency, began to deteriorate, leading to a decline in trade and economic productivity. This economic downturn further fueled social unrest and political instability, creating a vicious cycle that weakened the empire's ability to address its growing challenges. The economic crisis wasn't simply a matter of financial mismanagement. It was a symptom of a deeper systemic problem, one that eroded the empire's ability to sustain itself. Political instability further exacerbated the empire's decline. The later Roman emperors, often weak and ineffective rulers, engaged in constant power struggles, leading to periods of intense political instability and violence. The frequent succession of emperors, many of whom were assassinated or overthrown, created an atmosphere of chaos and uncertainty, undermining the empire's authority and weakening its capacity for effective governance. This political infighting and corruption further eroded the empire's ability to address its economic and military challenges, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of decline. The lack of strong, consistent leadership created a power vacuum, which was readily exploited by ambitious generals, rival factions, and external enemies. The rise of Christianity, while eventually becoming the official religion of the empire, initially created internal conflicts and tensions. The early persecution of Christians fueled resentment and rebellion, while the later adoption of Christianity as the state religion brought its own set of challenges and divisions. The shift in religious focus, away from traditional Roman values and towards Christian ideals, further contributed to the empire's cultural and political fragmentation. The gradual erosion of traditional Roman values and the rise of a new, often conflicting, set of beliefs created internal divisions that weakened the empire's social and political cohesion. Military overstretch also contributed significantly to Rome's decline. The Roman army, once the most formidable fighting force in the ancient world, gradually became less effective. Centuries of constant warfare, the need to defend vast borders, and the increasing reliance on foreign mercenaries weakened the army's discipline and effectiveness. The empire struggled to maintain its military strength, making it increasingly vulnerable to invasions from barbarian tribes. The constant pressure on the frontiers stretched the Roman army thin, reducing its effectiveness and increasing its vulnerability to external threats. The growing reliance on foreign mercenaries, often unreliable and prone to disloyalty, further undermined the army's cohesion and effectiveness. Finally, the barbarian invasions, often cited as the primary cause of the empire's fall, were in reality the culmination of centuries of decline. The barbarian tribes, initially nomadic groups living on the empire's frontiers, gradually increased their pressure on the Roman borders, taking advantage of the empire's internal weaknesses. The invasions were not a single event. They were a series of incursions and migrations, reflecting the internal instability and fragmentation of the empire. These invasions weren't the sole cause of the empire's fall. They were the final, devastating blow to an already weakened and fragmented state. They were the symptom, not the cause, of Rome's underlying problems. In conclusion, the fall of the Roman Empire wasn't a singular, dramatic event. It was a complex and multifaceted process spanning centuries. It wasn't a sudden collapse, but a gradual erosion, a slow and agonizing decline fueled by a complex interplay of economic woes, political instability, military overstretch, the rise of Christianity, and ultimately, barbarian invasions. These factors weren't isolated events. They were intricately interwoven, creating a cascading effect that ultimately led to the empire's fragmentation and eventual demise. The true story of the fall of Rome is far more nuanced, far more intricate, and far more fascinating than any simplistic narrative can possibly convey. It is a cautionary tale about the fragility of even the mightiest empires, a reminder that internal weaknesses can ultimately prove more destructive than external threats, and a testament to the complexity of historical processes. Understanding the fall of Rome requires us to move beyond the convenient, simplistic explanations and delve into the intricate web of factors that contributed to the demise of one of history's most influential civilizations. So, we've journeyed through a fascinating and sometimes shocking exploration of historical inaccuracies, haven't we? We've uncovered 5 deeply ingrained myths that, upon closer examination, reveal a far more complex and compelling reality. Let's take a moment to recap these historical misconceptions and the surprising truths that lie beneath them. Because understanding how these myths persist and how they distort our understanding of the past is just as important as knowing the actual historical facts. First, we tackled the pervasive myth of Columbus discovering America. This seemingly simple statement, a cornerstone of many historical narratives, fundamentally erases the millennia-long presence of thriving indigenous civilizations across North and South America. We explored the rich tapestry of pre-Columbian societies, the sophisticated city-states of the Maya and Aztec, the intricate agricultural systems of the Andes, the vast networks of trade and communication that span the North American continent. These weren't isolated, primitive tribes. They were complex, sophisticated civilizations with advanced knowledge in mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, and social organization. Columbus's arrival, far from being a discovery, marked a catastrophic turning point, initiating a period of devastating colonization, disease, and cultural destruction that continues to impact indigenous communities to this day. The myth of Columbus's discovery isn't just an inaccuracy, it's an act of historical erasure, a silencing of indigenous voices, and a perpetuation of a deeply unjust narrative. The true history of the Americas is a far richer, more complex, and tragically more nuanced story than the simplified version often presented. Next, we challenged the simplistic stereotype of Vikings as solely brutal barbarians. While their raiding activities were undeniably violent and devastating, the reality of Viking culture is far more multifaceted and surprisingly sophisticated. We explored their remarkable achievements in shipbuilding. Their longships were technological marvels, enabling extensive trade networks across Europe and even beyond. These weren't just raiders. They were skilled craftsmen, shrewd traders, and surprisingly adept farmers. Their society possessed surprisingly advanced social structures, sophisticated legal systems documented in sagas and runic inscriptions, and a remarkable artistic legacy evident in their intricate metalwork and stunning jewelry. The brutal barbarian stereotype is a gross oversimplification, obscuring the richness and complexity of Viking culture, their contributions to trade, their advanced shipbuilding techniques, and their surprisingly sophisticated social and legal systems. The true story of the Vikings is far more compelling than the one-dimensional portrayal often presented. Then, we examine the myth of the Great Wall of China as a single, continuous, unbroken structure. This iconic image, deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness, simplifies a far more intricate historical reality. The Great Wall, in fact, is a series of fortifications built over centuries by different dynasties, employing diverse construction methods and materials, and exhibiting significant gaps and variations in its design and execution. It wasn't a single, unified project. It was a long, evolving process, reflecting changing political landscapes, evolving military strategies, and the diverse geographical challenges faced by its builders. The myth of a singular, continuous wall obscures the contributions of countless individuals, the diverse historical contexts, and the sheer scale of this monumental undertaking. The true story of the Great Wall is a far more complex and fascinating testament to human ingenuity and resilience than the simplified image suggests. Following this, we delved into the infamous "let them eat cake" quote, often attributed to Marie Antoinette. This seemingly simple phrase, a potent symbol of aristocratic indifference, has become inextricably linked to the French Queen, shaping our understanding of the French Revolution. However, the historical evidence for this quote is remarkably weak. There's no contemporary record, no definitive proof that Marie Antoinette ever uttered these words. The quote's origins are far more ambiguous, its attribution to the Queen likely a piece of carefully crafted propaganda designed to vilify her during the turbulent years leading up to the Revolution. The quote's enduring power lies not in its historical accuracy, but in its potent symbolism, its ability to encapsulate the perceived disconnect between the aristocracy and the suffering masses. The true story of this quote reveals the power of propaganda and how historical narratives can be manipulated to serve specific political agendas. Finally, we challenged the myth of the Roman Empire's fall as a single, dramatic event. The simplified narrative often portrays a swift, catastrophic collapse, barbarian hordes, a decisive battle, and the empire vanishes. However, the reality is far more complex and protracted. The decline of Rome was a gradual process, spanning centuries and involving a multitude of interwoven factors. Economic woes, political instability, military overstretch, the rise of Christianity, and ultimately, barbarian invasions all played significant roles in the empire's slow unraveling. The fall wasn't a single event. It was a complex interplay of internal weaknesses and external pressures, a gradual erosion of power and influence that ultimately led to the empire's fragmentation and eventual dissolution. The true story of Rome's decline is far more nuanced and fascinating than the simplistic narrative often presented. In conclusion, these 5 myths highlight how easily historical narratives can be simplified, distorted, or even fabricated. They demonstrate the importance of critical thinking, careful examination of sources, and a willingness to question established narratives. Understanding history accurately isn't just about memorizing dates and names. It's about critically analyzing the information presented, seeking diverse perspectives, and striving to construct a more complete and nuanced understanding of the past. By challenging these myths, we've not only uncovered more accurate historical accounts, but also gained valuable insights into the ways in which historical narratives are constructed, interpreted, and sometimes deliberately manipulated. The pursuit of historical truth requires constant vigilance, a commitment to critical thinking, and a recognition that our understanding of the past is always evolving. The stories we tell ourselves about the past shape our present and future, and it is our responsibility to ensure that these stories are as accurate and inclusive as possible. We've just journeyed through 5 common historical myths, each a testament to how easily narratives can be simplified, distorted, or even outright fabricated, leading to widespread misconceptions. These aren't minor inaccuracies. They're fundamental misunderstandings that shape our understanding of entire civilizations, cultures, and pivotal historical events. The ease with which these myths persist highlights the critical need for rigorous historical analysis, a constant questioning of accepted narratives, and a commitment to uncovering the complexities of the past. Let's consider the impact of these simplified narratives. The myth of Columbus discovering America, for instance, isn't just a harmless inaccuracy. It's a profound act of historical erasure. It minimizes, if not completely ignores, the millennia-long presence of thriving indigenous civilizations across the Americas, their sophisticated societies, their remarkable achievements in agriculture, engineering, and social organization. By framing Columbus as the discoverer, we inadvertently diminish the contributions of these indigenous peoples, relegating them to the sidelines of their own history. This simplification isn't just a matter of semantics, it has real-world consequences, perpetuating harmful stereotypes, undermining indigenous land rights, and hindering genuine reconciliation. Similarly, the simplistic portrayal of Vikings as nothing but brutal barbarians ignores the complexities of their culture, their remarkable achievements in shipbuilding and navigation, their extensive trade networks, and their surprisingly sophisticated social structures. This reductionist view not only distorts our understanding of Viking society, but also fails to appreciate the nuances of their interactions with other cultures, the cultural exchange facilitated by their trade, and the lasting impact they had on the development of Europe. By focusing solely on their violent raids, we miss the richness and complexity of their culture, their artistic achievements, and their significant contributions to the broader historical narrative. The myth of the Great Wall of China as a single, continuous structure similarly simplifies a far more intricate historical reality. This iconic image, while visually striking, obscures the centuries-long process of construction and modification by different dynasties, each with its own unique architectural style, materials, and strategic goals. It ignores the immense human cost of building and maintaining this colossal structure, the countless laborers, soldiers, and convicts who toiled under often brutal conditions. This simplification not only distorts our understanding of the wall itself, but also diminishes the contributions of countless individuals and the complex historical processes that shaped its creation. The "let them eat cake" quote attributed to Marie Antoinette is perhaps the most striking example of a fabricated narrative. This seemingly simple phrase, a potent symbol of aristocratic indifference, has become inextricably linked to the Queen, shaping our understanding of the French Revolution and her role within it. However, the historical evidence for this quote is remarkably weak, its attribution to Marie Antoinette likely a piece of carefully crafted propaganda designed to demonize her and justify the overthrow of the monarchy. This myth illustrates how easily historical narratives can be manipulated to serve political agendas, how easily a fabricated anecdote can take root and shape our understanding of the past. Finally, the myth of the Roman Empire's fall as a single, dramatic event obscures the complex and protracted process of decline spanning centuries. The simplified narrative, often focusing solely on barbarian invasions, ignores the significant role of internal weaknesses, economic woes, political instability, military overstretch, and the rise of Christianity in the empire's gradual disintegration. This reductionist view fails to appreciate the multifaceted nature of historical change, the intricate interplay of factors that contributed to the empire's eventual demise. It simplifies a complex historical process into a simple, easily digestible narrative, thereby losing the essential nuances and complexities that make history so rich and fascinating. These 5 myths, while seemingly disparate, share a common thread. They represent simplified narratives that obscure the complexities of historical processes, the contributions of diverse groups, and the often uncomfortable realities of the past. This simplification, often driven by a desire for clarity and memorability, leads to misconceptions, perpetuates harmful stereotypes, and ultimately prevents us from gaining a true understanding of the past. The consequences of accepting these simplified narratives are far-reaching. They can lead to inaccurate interpretations of historical events, biased understandings of different cultures, and the perpetuation of harmful stereotypes. They can also hinder genuine reconciliation and understanding between different groups, preventing us from learning from the mistakes of the past and building a more just and equitable future. Therefore, critical thinking is paramount when engaging with historical narratives. We must question the sources of information, consider the biases of historians and the motivations behind their interpretations, and seek out diverse perspectives. We must be willing to confront uncomfortable truths, to acknowledge the complexities and contradictions of the past, and to avoid simplistic explanations that oversimplify complex historical processes. Further research is crucial to overcome these misconceptions. Engaging with primary sources, exploring diverse historical perspectives, and consulting multiple scholarly interpretations are essential steps in constructing a more accurate and nuanced understanding of historical events. We must move beyond the readily available, often simplified narratives and delve into the complexities of historical research to gain a deeper appreciation of the past. The pursuit of historical accuracy is not merely an academic exercise. It is a vital component of building a more just and equitable future. By challenging simplified narratives and embracing the complexities of history, we can promote a more inclusive and accurate understanding of the past, fostering empathy, understanding, and a deeper appreciation for the rich tapestry of human experience. The past is not a static entity. It is a constantly evolving narrative, shaped by new discoveries, reinterpretations, and the ongoing efforts of historians to uncover the truth. Our role is to actively engage in this process, to question, to analyze, and to strive for a more accurate and nuanced understanding of the world around us. Only through critical engagement with historical narratives can we hope to avoid perpetuating the same mistakes and build a more informed and just future. So, we've uncovered 5 pervasive historical myths, each revealing a more complex and fascinating truth than the simplified narratives we often hear. But the journey doesn't end here. Understanding why these myths persist and how they distort our perception of the past is just as crucial as knowing the actual historical facts. This isn't merely about correcting minor inaccuracies. It's about recognizing how these misconceptions shape our understanding of entire cultures, civilizations, and pivotal historical events. The persistence of these myths underscores the vital importance of critical thinking and rigorous historical research. It's time to equip ourselves with the tools to navigate the complex landscape of historical interpretation and avoid perpetuating these inaccuracies. Let's delve deeper into the significance of critical thinking in our historical understanding. It's not simply about accepting information at face value. It's about actively engaging with the material, questioning its sources, and evaluating its biases. This requires a multifaceted approach, one that considers multiple perspectives, acknowledges the limitations of historical evidence, and remains open to the possibility of revising our understanding as new information emerges. Critical thinking in history isn't passive. It's active, demanding, and essential for a truly informed understanding of the past. One crucial aspect of critical thinking involves questioning the sources of information. Who created this narrative? What were their motivations? Were they eyewitnesses, participants, or later interpreters with their own agendas? Understanding the context in which historical accounts were produced is fundamental to evaluating their reliability and identifying potential biases. A seemingly objective historical account might, upon closer examination, reveal underlying assumptions, political motivations, or cultural biases that shape its interpretation. Consider, for instance, the numerous accounts of the French Revolution. Some were written by revolutionaries, others by loyalists, and still others by later historians with their own interpretations. Each account offers a unique perspective, shaped by the writer's experiences, beliefs, and political leanings. By comparing and contrasting these diverse narratives, we can begin to construct a more complete and nuanced understanding of the event. Furthermore, critical thinking demands an awareness of the limitations of historical evidence. Historical sources are rarely perfect, complete, or unbiased. They may be incomplete, fragmented, or even deliberately manipulated. Archaeological findings, for instance, can be subject to various interpretations, depending on the context in which they are discovered and the methodologies used to analyze them. Similarly, written sources may be incomplete, biased, or simply inaccurate. Therefore, historians must carefully evaluate the available evidence, considering its potential limitations and acknowledging the gaps in our knowledge. It's about understanding that historical truth is often elusive, a mosaic pieced together from fragments of information, each piece requiring careful scrutiny and interpretation. Critical thinking also necessitates a willingness to embrace ambiguity and complexity. History rarely unfolds in neat, easily digestible narratives. Events are often messy, multifaceted, and open to multiple interpretations. There are rarely simple answers to complex historical questions. Instead of seeking simple, definitive answers, critical thinkers embrace the ambiguities and contradictions inherent in the historical record. They acknowledge the existence of multiple perspectives and interpretations, recognizing that historical understanding is an ongoing process of refinement and revision. It's a journey of discovery, not a destination of definitive answers. Beyond critical thinking, further research is absolutely essential for accurate historical understanding. This involves going beyond readily available, often simplified, narratives and delving into the rich tapestry of primary and secondary sources. Primary sources, first-hand accounts, original documents, artifacts, offer direct insights into the past, although they must be evaluated with careful consideration of their biases and limitations. Secondary sources, scholarly articles, books, and interpretations offer valuable analysis and synthesis of primary sources, providing deeper contextual understanding and multiple perspectives. Engaging with primary sources requires patience and skill. These sources often require careful translation, interpretation, and contextualization. They can be challenging to access, requiring research in archives, libraries, and online databases. But the effort is worthwhile. Primary sources offer a direct connection to the past, allowing us to hear the voices of those who lived through the events we study. They provide a level of detail and nuance that is often absent in secondary sources. Secondary sources, while valuable for their analysis and synthesis, must also be evaluated critically. Historians have different approaches, methodologies, and interpretations. Comparing and contrasting different interpretations allows us to gain a more comprehensive understanding of the historical event or phenomenon under investigation. It's essential to understand the theoretical frameworks, the biases, and the methodologies used by historians to construct their interpretations. A diverse range of secondary sources allows for a more nuanced and balanced understanding. The pursuit of historical accuracy is not merely an academic exercise. It has significant practical implications. Accurate historical understanding informs our present and shapes our future. It allows us to learn from the mistakes of the past, to avoid repeating them, and to build a more just and equitable society. By challenging simplified narratives and embracing the complexities of history, we can foster empathy, understanding, and a deeper appreciation for the rich tapestry of human experience. In conclusion, critical thinking and further research are not optional components of historical understanding. They are absolutely essential. They are the tools we need to navigate the complexities of the past, to challenge simplified narratives, and to construct a more accurate and nuanced understanding of the world around us. The pursuit of historical accuracy is an ongoing process, a journey of discovery that requires constant vigilance, a commitment to critical thinking, and a willingness to embrace the complexities and contradictions of the past. Only through this rigorous approach can we hope to avoid perpetuating historical myths and build a more informed and just future. The past is not a fixed entity. It is a dynamic narrative, constantly evolving as new evidence emerges and interpretations are refined. Our role is to actively engage with this process, to question, to analyze, and to strive for a more complete and nuanced understanding of the human story. Let's embrace the challenge, delve into the complexities, and work together to build a more accurate and inclusive understanding of our shared history. That's it. We've journeyed through a fascinating and at times surprising exploration of historical inaccuracies, uncovering 5 deeply ingrained myths that, upon closer examination, reveal far more complex and compelling realities. We've seen how easily historical narratives can be simplified, distorted, or even fabricated, leading to widespread misconceptions that shape our understanding of entire civilizations and pivotal historical events. But this isn't just an academic exercise. It's about understanding the power of narrative, the influence of bias, and the importance of critical thinking in shaping our understanding of the past, present, and future. Remember the myth of Columbus discovering America? That seemingly straightforward statement, so deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness, actively erases the millennia-long presence of thriving indigenous civilizations. It silences their voices, minimizes their achievements, and perpetuates a narrative of conquest that continues to have devastating consequences. The truth is far more complex and far more tragic, a story of vibrant, sophisticated cultures that flourished for centuries before European contact, only to be decimated by disease, displacement, and systematic oppression. The myth of Columbus's discovery isn't just a historical inaccuracy, it's a tool of oppression, a narrative that continues to marginalize and silence indigenous voices. Then there's the stereotype of the Vikings as brutal barbarians. While their raiding activities were undeniably violent, the reality of Viking culture is far richer and more sophisticated. They were not just ruthless warriors. They were also skilled craftsmen, shrewd traders, and surprisingly adept farmers. Their longships, marvels of engineering, enabled extensive trade networks across vast distances, fostering cultural exchange and the dissemination of ideas. Their social structures were surprisingly advanced, with sophisticated legal systems and a rich artistic legacy. The brutal barbarian stereotype obscures the complexities of their culture, their contributions to trade and exploration, and their surprisingly nuanced social organization. We also explored the myth of the Great Wall of China as a single, continuous structure. This iconic image, deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness, simplifies a far more intricate historical reality. The Great Wall, in fact, is a series of fortifications built over centuries by different dynasties, each with its unique architectural style, materials, and strategic goals. It's a testament to the enduring ingenuity and resilience of the Chinese people, but also a reminder of the immense human cost of monumental projects. The myth of a singular, unbroken wall obscures the complexity of its construction, the contributions of countless individuals, and the varied historical contexts that shaped its creation. The infamous "let them eat cake" quote attributed to Marie Antoinette is perhaps the most striking example of a fabricated narrative. This seemingly simple phrase, a potent symbol of aristocratic indifference, has become inextricably linked to the Queen, shaping our understanding of the French Revolution and her role within it. But the historical evidence for this quote is remarkably weak. There's no contemporary record, no definitive proof that Marie Antoinette ever uttered these words. Its attribution is likely a piece of carefully crafted propaganda designed to demonize her and justify the overthrow of the monarchy. This myth highlights the power of propaganda and how easily historical narratives can be manipulated to serve specific political agendas. Finally, we address the myth of the Roman Empire's fall as a single, dramatic event. The simplified narrative often portrays a swift, catastrophic collapse, but the reality is far more complex and protracted. The decline of Rome was a gradual process, spanning centuries and involving a multitude of interwoven factors: economic woes, political instability, military overstretch, the rise of Christianity, and ultimately, barbarian invasions. These weren't isolated events, they were intricately interwoven, creating a cascading effect that ultimately led to the empire's fragmentation and eventual dissolution. The true story of Rome's decline is far more nuanced and fascinating than the simplistic narrative often presented. These 5 myths, while seemingly disparate, share a common thread. They represent simplified narratives that obscure the complexities of historical processes, the contributions of diverse groups, and the often uncomfortable realities of the past. This simplification, often driven by a desire for clarity and memorability, leads to misconceptions, perpetuates harmful stereotypes, and ultimately prevents us from gaining a true understanding of the past. The consequences of accepting these simplified narratives are far-reaching. They can lead to inaccurate interpretations of historical events, biased understandings of different cultures, and the perpetuation of harmful stereotypes. They can also hinder genuine reconciliation and understanding between different groups, preventing us from learning from the mistakes of the past and building a more just and equitable future. So, what can we take away from this journey through historical inaccuracies? The most important lesson is the crucial role of critical thinking. Don't just passively accept information, actively engage with it. Question the sources, consider the biases, and seek out diverse perspectives. Don't be afraid to challenge what you think you know, to dig deeper, and to confront the complexities and contradictions of the past. History isn't a collection of easily digestible facts. It's a complex and ever-evolving narrative shaped by new discoveries, reinterpretations, and the ongoing efforts of historians to uncover the truth. Further research is essential. Engage with primary sources, explore diverse historical perspectives, and consult multiple scholarly interpretations. Move beyond the readily available, often simplified narratives, and delve into the complexities of historical research to gain a deeper appreciation of the past. The pursuit of historical accuracy isn't merely an academic exercise, it's a vital component of building a more just and equitable future. By challenging simplified narratives and embracing the complexities of history, we can promote a more inclusive and accurate understanding of the past, fostering empathy, understanding, and a deeper appreciation for the rich tapestry of human experience. The past is not a static entity, it's a constantly evolving narrative. Our role is to actively engage in this process, to question, to analyze, and to strive for a more accurate and nuanced understanding of the world around us. Only through critical engagement with historical narratives can we hope to avoid perpetuating the same mistakes and build a more informed and just future. So, remember to question what you know, dig deeper, and always seek diverse perspectives. And thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope this video has challenged your assumptions, expanded your knowledge, and perhaps even changed the way you think about history. If you found this video insightful, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel for more explorations into historical truths and inaccuracies, and share this video with anyone who might find it enlightening. Help us spread the truth, one historical fact at a time. Thanks again for watching, and remember, stay curious.